certainly an element of making my grandfather proud and honouring him by taking part in the award that has been so much of his life's work. And I definitely hope that I have made him proud.
For years, Lady Louise has remained one of the monarchy's most understated figures, quietly avoiding the spotlight while expectations swirled around her future. Then, without warning, a personal decision surfaced. One so unexpected it reportedly caught King Charles completely off guard. Courtiers whispered, timelines shifted, and palace assumptions were suddenly rewritten. This was not a loud rebellion, but a subtle move with powerful implications. So why did she choose this moment, and what does her choice reveal about changing priorities behind palace doors and the crown itself? The enigmatic whisper that shook the palace. In a world where the loudest change does not arrive with shouting or rebellion, but with silence. A world where power shifts not through commands, but through calm refusal. Behind tall palace walls and golden doors, where tradition breathes heavily and expectations sit like stone, one young woman chose a different kind of courage. This is the story of Lady Louise Windsor, a quiet figure in a very loud institution, who reshaped her future without protest, drama, or defiance. Lady Louise was born close enough to the throne to feel its weight, yet just far enough to be watched without being fully understood. From her earliest days, she lived on the edge of the royal spotlight. Cameras did not follow her every step, but curiosity did. Every appearance, every absence, every choice was carefully noted and endlessly discussed. In a family where duty often speaks louder than desire, Louise learned early that silence could be both a shield and a language of its own. Unlike the bold, headline-grabbing royals of history, Louise never announced her intentions. She did not argue with tradition or openly challenge the system she was born into. Instead, she listened, observed, and reflected. While others performed their roles with practiced ease, Louise seemed to pause, as though asking a question few dared to ask. What if this life is not mine to live? There were whispers, of course. There always are. Among them was the quiet mention of someone called Felix. Little was known about him. No official statements, no photographs splashed across newspapers, no confirmed details. Those closest to Louise guarded his identity carefully, as if protecting something fragile and precious. On an important day, one that would later be seen as a turning point, Felix was said to be there, not in the foreground, but just out of sight. He did not speak for her or stand in front of her. His role, if the whispers are true, was simpler and deeper. Presence, support, and belief without conditions. At the heart of Louise's story lies a private struggle familiar to many, yet magnified by privilege and protocol. Royal life offers comfort, influence, and global admiration, but it also takes something vital in return. Privacy fades. Freedom narrows. Life becomes a performance measured by schedules, expectations, and public approval. For Louise, this weight was not glamorous. It was exhausting. The crown may shine, but it also casts long shadows. Inside those shadows, Louise carried dreams that did not fit neatly into royal tradition. She imagined building a career of her own, shaped by her interests rather than her title. She longed for days that belonged to her alone, moments where she could simply exist without representing history, duty, or legacy. These dreams flickered quietly, like a small flame threatened by the cold drafts of expectation. But they did not go out. What makes Louise's choice remarkable is not just what she chose, but how. There was no public break, no dramatic farewell, no loud rejection of royal life. Instead, she stepped gently but firmly toward herself. In doing so, she showed that strength does not always roar. Sometimes it whispers. Sometimes it waits. And sometimes it walks away without asking permission. Her story unfolds in the spaces between headlines, in the calm pauses where nothing seems to happen, yet everything changes. It is a story of reflection rather than rebellion, of loss mixed with relief, and of choosing inner peace over inherited power. By placing herself above the symbol she was meant to serve, Louise redefined what courage can look like in a world obsessed with noise. As the velvet curtain is slowly pulled back, we see that this is not just a royal story. It is a human one. It reminds us that even within the most rigid systems, quiet choices can create lasting change. Lady Louise Windsor did not overthrow a dynasty, but she showed that sometimes the bravest revolution begins with listening to your own heart and daring to follow it, silently, into freedom. What could have resulted in Lady Louise's decision, that got the king by surprise. Could it really be her interest in getting married? Let's find out. The man beside Lady Louise. Felix, a 20-year-old student at the University of St. Andrews, has quietly become a familiar presence beside Lady Louise, sparking growing curiosity among royal watchers. According to those close to the scene, the two have been getting to know each other steadily over the past 2 years. What began as a low-key friendship between university peers now appears, at least to onlookers, to have deepened into something warmer and more meaningful. Felix has been seen supporting Lady Louise at important moments, most notably during the Horse and Carriage Festival in 2024. His appearance there did not go unnoticed. Calmly standing among family, friends, and spectators, he seemed entirely at ease, offering encouragement without drawing attention to himself. This year, he again traveled to Sandringham to be present for her competition, a visit that turned out to be a joyful one. Lady Louise delivered a strong performance and returned home with a silver medal, a moment of pride that many noticed Felix quietly sharing in. His presence during both events has added to the sense that he is more than just a casual friend. Felix's background is as interesting as it is international. He was born in London in 2004 to Jonathan Clamp, a solicitor and former Conservative parliamentary candidate, and his wife, Kendall. Although his early years began in the United Kingdom, his upbringing soon took a global turn. His family later moved to Australia, where Felix spent much of his formative years. This blend of British roots and Australian experiences has shaped a young man who appears comfortable moving between different worlds with ease. During his time in Australia, Felix attended Melbourne Grammar School from 2017 to 2022. Known for its strong academic standards and emphasis on character, the school played a key role in his development. Friends and teachers have described him as thoughtful, grounded, and quietly confident, qualities that seem to match well with the reserved and composed nature often associated with Lady Louise. After completing his studies there, Felix chose to return to the UK, heading north to Scotland to continue his education at the University of St. Andrews. St. Andrews is, of course, no stranger to royal connections. Its long history, traditional atmosphere, and close-knit student community have made it a place where friendships can grow away from the constant glare of public attention. Within the setting, Felix and Lady Louise have been able to spend time together relatively undisturbed, sharing the ordinary rhythms of student life. Lectures, walks through the town, and quiet conversations that happen far from flashing cameras. Observers of the royal family have been quick to notice the increasing closeness between the two. Small details, shared appearances, supportive gestures, and familiar ease have fueled speculation. Yet, true to the family's preference for privacy, there has been no official statement confirming the nature of their relationship. Everything remains, at least publicly, unspoken. Still, for many, the signs feel meaningful enough to invite gentle curiosity rather than wild rumor. What has especially intrigued royal watchers is Felix's natural fit within these spaces. He does not appear overwhelmed by tradition or expectation, nor does he seek the spotlight. Instead, he seems content to stand slightly to the side, offering steady support. This quiet confidence has led some to wonder whether he could one day become part of the wider royal circle. For now, nothing is certain. Relationships, especially those involving public figures, often unfold slowly and out of view. Yet the story of Felix and Lady Louise continues to draw interest precisely because of its simplicity. It is not marked by grand announcements or dramatic displays, but by consistent presence, shared experiences, and mutual support. Whether this journey leads to a future role within the extended royal family remains to be seen. What is clear is that step by step, Felix has become a figure many are watching with growing fascination. Was Lady Louise a popular figure in the royal family? What was growing up like for her? Let's delve into the details of Lady Louise's childhood, shadows of a sheltered upbringing and lingering loss. From the moment she entered a world enchanted by crowns, castles, and storybook romance, Lady Louise Windsor quietly stepped off the expected path. While many imagined royal life as a parade of glittering gowns and waving crowds, Louise's reality unfolded far from the spotlight. She was not raised to chase applause or pose for headlines. Instead, her early years were shaped by calm spaces and thoughtful choices, carefully designed by parents who wanted something rare for a royal child. A life that felt real. Prince Edward and Sophie, the Duchess of Edinburgh, made a deliberate decision to shield their children from the constant gaze that follows the monarchy. Rather than growing up beneath flashing cameras, Louise spent her days in the countryside, where mornings smelled of damp grass and afternoons passed with pony rides, long walks, and quiet play. Family meals were shared without ceremony. There were no grand performances, no pressure to impress. What mattered most were kindness, patience, and respect for others, values taught gently, not announced loudly. In this peaceful setting, Louise grew into herself. She was thoughtful and observant, the kind of child who noticed what others missed. While the world often sees royalty as larger than life, Louise learned early that true strength does not need to shout. She carried herself with calm confidence, not because she was told she mattered, but because she was allowed to discover it on her own. Even at a young age, she seemed aware that her name carried weight. She understood, perhaps more than people realized, that a royal title could feel both like a gift and a quiet burden. As she grew older, questions began to form in the stillness she knew so well. Could happiness truly survive under constant public attention? Was it possible to live freely when so much was already decided by birth? These thoughts didn't come from rebellion, but from reflection. Louise was not running away from her heritage. She was trying to understand it. Then, the world around her shifted. The royal family, long seen as unshakable, began to show its cracks. Public scandals stirred debate. Traditions were questioned. The distance between the monarchy and the people it served became a topic of open discussion. For Louise, these changes were not just news stories. They were signs that the institution she belonged to was fragile, human, and evolving. The passing of Queen Elizabeth II marked a turning point unlike any other. For the nation, it was the end of an era. For Louise, it was deeply personal. The Queen was not only a symbol of stability, but a living reminder of duty, endurance, and grace. Her death brought a quiet but powerful lesson. Even those who seem permanent are only here for a time. Titles do not stop time. Palaces do not protect against loss. As King Charles stepped into his new role, the weight of the future settled heavily over the monarchy. There was talk of change, of renewal, of survival in a modern world that no longer looks at royalty with unquestioning awe. In this moment of uncertainty, Louise's inner world shifted too. Grief has a way of sharpening the mind. It strips away distractions and leaves only the truth. For her, that truth was simple and unsettling. Life is made of moments, and moments do not wait. What if the path laid out for her left too many moments unexplored? What if duty, however honorable, came at the cost of personal meaning? These were not dramatic questions, but honest ones. Louise was no longer just watching life happen around her. She was listening closely to her own heart. This season of change marked her quiet transformation, from a careful observer of tradition into a young woman searching for purpose beyond expectation. Without noise or announcement, she stood at the edge of a decision that would captivate attention, not because of scandal or spectacle, but because it spoke to something universal, the desire to live a life that feels truly one's own. Did society have high expectations of Lady Louise? Could the expectations be related to the protection she has had from childhood? Let's dig into the details of the expectations on Lady Louise. The invisible chains of expectation and sanctuary in study. No polished document ever arrived to spell out Lady Louise's future. There was no formal letter, no official speech, no clear plan placed gently in her hands. And yet, the expectations were everywhere, thick in the air, quietly pressing in on her from all sides. Without anyone saying it outright, she was assumed to be on a familiar path. Step forward as a working royal, attend carefully chosen events, smile at the right moments, and help uphold the image of an institution far older than herself. Personal desires, it seemed, would naturally come second to duty. That was simply how things were done. As time passed, public appearances became more frequent. Each one watched closely and judged even more closely. Every time she showed up, commentators praised her composure. Every time she didn't, questions surfaced. Where was she? Why the absence? Was she preparing to commit fully to royal life, or was she quietly pulling away? Newspapers and online forums filled the gaps with guesses, turning silence into speculation. To the outside world, it was a harmless guessing game. To Louise, it was exhausting. She found herself trapped in a strange in-between space. Nothing had been decided, yet everything felt decided for her. Her life seemed paused, as though she were waiting for an unseen signal granting permission to move forward or step aside. This uncertainty carried a cost no one could easily see. It wasn't anger or defiance that stirred inside her, it was confusion. A deep, unsettling question echoed again and again. Who am I? Beyond what people expect me to be? Torn between loyalty to her family and a quiet longing to choose her own path, she faced an identity crisis that no royal training could prepare her for. Relief came from an unexpected place. University life, so ordinary to many, became her refuge. At St. Andrews, a place already rich with royal history, Louise experienced something new: anonymity. There, she wasn't introduced by her title or framed by tradition. She was simply Louise, a student attending lectures, reading novels, debating ideas over coffee, and forming friendships without the weight of centuries attached to her name. In classrooms and libraries, she felt a freedom she hadn't known before. Books opened new worlds. Discussions challenged her thinking. Long hours of study replaced rigid schedules, and curiosity replaced ceremony. For the first time, her days weren't carefully managed to reflect an image. They belonged to her. The quiet routines of academic life, walking across campus, preparing for exams, lingering in libraries, offered more than comfort. They offered clarity. As her mind expanded, so did her understanding of the life she had been expected to live. From a distance, royal duty looked honorable and secure. From closer range, she began to see its hidden cost: the slow loss of self, the constant performance, the pressure to be symbolic rather than human, the need to fit into a role that left little room for personal growth or private truth. What once felt like an obligation rooted in loyalty now appeared as a life that demanded constant sacrifice, often without asking whether the sacrifice was freely given. What started as a temporary escape soon became something deeper. University was no longer just a break from expectation. It was a mirror. It showed her who she could be when choice replaced assumption. She realized that stepping away from tradition did not mean rejecting her family or her heritage. It meant choosing honesty over pretense, wholeness over obligation. While the world beyond campus walls continued to speculate, Louise quietly changed. No headlines marked the shift. No announcement explained it. But within the calm spaces of learning and self-discovery, a decision began to take shape. A future where she could live truthfully, guided not by whispered expectations, but by a clear sense of self. And for the first time, that future felt fully, undeniably her own. How did Lady Louise express her decision before the king? Was she hoping to flee like Harry? Let's dive into the details of her choice as it resonates in the palace. The quiet forging of a fateful choice and palace ripples. Big life choices rarely arrive with shouting or slammed doors. Most of the time they grow quietly, shaped by long walks, late nights, and conversations spoken in low voices. That was how it happened for Louise. There was no single argument, no public clash, no dramatic breaking point. Instead, there was a slow turning inward, a steady movement toward protecting her own sense of self. Day by day, she came to see that staying as she was meant losing parts of herself she could not afford to give up. Louise thought carefully about what her decision would cost. She knew it could mean being seen less, speaking less, and standing farther from the bright lights that had followed her for so long. She understood that some doors would close quietly, while others would never open again. Even more painful was the knowledge that her choice might hurt people she loved deeply, people who had stood beside her through years of duty and expectation. Still, she asked herself a simple, honest question. What was the price of continuing a life that no longer fit? At the center of her thoughts stood King Charles. To Louise, he represented more than a man. He was the weight of history itself. His reign balanced carefully between honoring the past and making room for change. Every step he took seemed measured, careful not to disturb traditions that had stood for generations. Louise knew that her decision could shake that balance, even if only slightly. Yet she also saw another danger, one that felt far more personal and immediate. Living behind a mask, smiling through days that felt empty, and slowly shrinking to meet expectations that were never truly hers. When word of her choice began to move through the palace, it did not explode. There were no raised voices echoing through grand halls, no scenes fit for headlines. Instead, there was silence. A heavy, thoughtful silence settled into the rooms, as if everyone needed a moment to breathe and understand what had just changed. People felt many things at once. There was surprise, of course, and quiet sadness. There was also reflection, as each person looked inward and wondered what they might have done in her place. Louise made it clear that she was not running away. She was not rejecting her family, nor was she attacking the institution that had shaped her life. What she wanted was something more careful and more honest. She was choosing to redefine her relationship with the monarchy, setting boundaries that allowed her to remain herself. It was not an act of rebellion, but one of clarity. King Charles responded with calm and understanding. His life had been filled with hard choices, moments when duty and personal feeling pulled in opposite directions. From that experience, he offered Louise patience and respect. Yet, even with his steady response, there was a quiet ache beneath it. Disappointment lingered, not as anger, but as the soft sadness that comes when hopes must be adjusted. As the family slowly accepted the change, one truth became clear. Louise's strength did not come from loud speeches or bold gestures. It came from stillness, from knowing her own limits, and from having the courage to honor them. In a world that often mistakes noise for power, her choice stood as a reminder that real strength can be gentle, and that sometimes the bravest decisions are made in silence. Her story invites others to pause and listen to their own quiet questions. It suggests that loyalty does not always mean self-erasure, and that growth sometimes asks for distance, not defiance. Louise's path shows that change can be thoughtful, kind, and firm at the same time. By choosing herself, she did not break the world she came from. She simply stepped into a life that finally felt true, whole, and sustainable for the long road ahead. Always onward. What lessons can be learnt from Lady Louise's story? Is she turning her back against the royal family? Let's find out. A redefined legacy and the whisper that endures. What the public noticed first was not a speech or a dramatic announcement, but a quiet gap. There were no official statements, no interviews, no attempts to explain. Instead, there was silence, and that silence spoke loudly. It showed up as missed appearances, changed plans, and expectations that slowly faded away. For royal watchers, this absence became a puzzle. Every small detail was examined, every pause interpreted. The lack of information fueled curiosity and endless guessing. Yet this quiet was not confusion. It was a choice. Louise stepped back on purpose. For someone raised in a world ruled by schedules, customs, and unspoken rules, silence became a powerful act. For once, she decided not to perform, not to explain herself, not to shape her life around public comfort. She claimed something that had always been limited: control over her own story. And in doing so, she raised a simple but bold question. Why must a person constantly explain their truth for it to be valid? Her decision gently challenged long-held beliefs about royalty. Many assume that strength in royal life means total self-denial, always showing up, always smiling, always giving more, even when it costs your inner peace. There is a popular myth that duty requires disappearing into the role, leaving little space for the person behind the title. Louise quietly disagreed. She showed that loyalty does not have to mean self-erasure, and that commitment does not require constant visibility. Instead of loud defiance, she revealed a softer kind of courage, one that grows from knowing oneself, one that does not demand applause. Her strength was inward, steady, and calm. She proved that it is possible to honor family, tradition, and responsibility without losing personal identity. The crown, she seemed to say, can rest on a head that still thinks, feels, and chooses freely. For King Charles, this moment carried deep meaning. It mirrored his own life journey, years spent balancing expectation with personal conviction. While the change may have surprised him at first, it soon opened a space for understanding. Rather than conflict, there was empathy. Louise's choice reminded him that growth often comes when tradition makes room for truth. In that shared understanding, family bonds deepened. Contrary to public fear, Louise did not disappear. She simply began to live with intention. Away from constant attention, she may have returned to old passions, reading, writing, or creative work that feeds the soul quietly. She may have invested in relationships that are private and sincere, not shaped by cameras or ceremony. There are even gentle rumors of someone from her past, an Australian companion from her student days, who values her for who she is, not what she represents. Whether true or not, the idea itself captures something important: a life centered on connection, not title. Perhaps most of all, Louise embraced the small freedoms many take for granted: walking without notice, choosing how to spend a day, enjoying peace without explanation. These simple joys, often denied to royalty, became part of her new rhythm. Her future now stretches open, guided not by strict rules, but by thoughtful choice. This quiet shift did not weaken the monarchy, it strengthened it. By allowing space for humanity, it made tradition more livable and more real. Louise's decision showed that institutions survive not by resisting change, but by growing with it. Her silence was not rejection, it was renewal. In the end, this story reminds us that courage is not always loud. Sometimes it whispers, and in that whisper we hear something powerful. That behind every crown is a human life, full of untold stories, private hopes, and the simple desire to live truthfully. Louise listened to that voice, and in doing so, helped a dynasty listen too. So, what do you think about Lady Louise's relationship? Do you think it could stop her from performing her royal duties? We would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe.